guys, this is Anna. Thanks for joining me. Today I want to share with you a list that I've put together of the 31 most anticipated books coming out this spring and summer. And I'm really excited to share this list with you. There's some really good ones coming out. Tucker, bring me the book. Good boy. Thank you. Over here. Thank you. Stay. Stay. Good boy. Okay. Oh, thank you, Tucker. All right, so Tucker's brought me the first book today that I want to share with you, Our Infinite Fates by Laura Steven. This book, as you can see, has already been released. It came out on March 4th, but I decided to include it on this list because it is highly anticipated. This is a really pretty copy. I think the regular cover, this is the deluxe version from Barnes & Noble. I think the original cover has like a teal blue, and it's got these nice gold sprayed edges here. It is a YA fantasy romance about Evelyn, who can remember all her past lives. She can remember that in every single one, she's been murdered before her 18th birthday by Arden, a supernatural being linked to her soul. The problem is that she's quite fond with this life she's in now, and her little sister needs her in order to stay alive. If Evelyn wants to save her sister, she'll have to find the centuries-old devil who hunts her through each life before they find her first, figure out why she's being hunted, and finally break their curse, and try not to fall in love again. So, it seems really interesting, and I am probably going to read this sooner rather than later. Okay, so this next book is called The Serendipity by Emma St. Clair. Oh, what's this? Oh, you have it. The Serendipity. Thank you for bringing that to me, Tucker. Come here. Sit. Nothing else. It's a treat for a treat, you know? You bring me the book, I give you a treat. You gotta bring me more books if I'm gonna give you more treats. So like I said, this is my list of highly anticipated releases for me. And so I was so excited about this book that I went out and bought it. So this is The Serendipity by Emma St. Clair. As you can tell, this has already been released as well. It came out on March 5th, but this was probably one of my most anticipated releases. So I just went ahead and bought it anyways for this video and so that I can read it. This is a whimsical romance. It's part of the Only Magic in the Building series, but it's been billed as a standalone. I have not read any books in this series, so I hope it's a standalone. But it's about a magical building that thinks a no-nonsense businessman and a free-spirited baker are perfect for each other. And the building apparently is playing matchmaker and setting them up, and a lot of hijinks and comedy ensue. And so I'm really looking forward to this one. This will be my first time reading this author, and I think it'll be really good. So on March 11th, a new historical fiction book called Lizzie is coming out. It's by Diane Fanning, and it's a fictionalized retelling of the Lizzie Borden murders, told from Lizzie's perspective. So if you're not familiar with who Lizzie Borden is, in 1892, a young woman named Lizzie Borden decided that she was going to unalive her dad and her stepmom with an axe. And so she did. Afterwards, there was a trial, which was a circus and a very controversial outcome. I don't remember whether she was convicted or not, actually. I don't know that. But I think it would be a very interesting take on this very real life crime that took place to see what it might have been like for Lizzie on her perspective. We always hear about what she did, but not about how she thought or what she was thinking or what was going through her mind, what her motivations and actions were. So I think it'll be a really interesting take on a very famous crime. The next book I want to share with you is coming out on March 18th, and it's probably the most anticipated book on this list, and that is Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. Suzanne Collins wrote the Hunger Games trilogy, and so this is the 5th book overall in this series and the second prequel to come out. This time it takes place during the 50th Hunger Games and follows Haymitch's story. We don't really know much about what happened during Haymitch's Hunger Games because he won't talk about it in the previous books, and he basically drinks every single day to get through life. And so whatever happened was probably pretty horrendous, but it is one of the bigger mysteries, I think, that has not been revealed in the Hunger Games series. And so I am really, really looking forward to this one. I'm currently listening to the first prequel that came out, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and so I'm almost done with that one. I think I will be finished with it in time to download the audiobook of this on the 18th. The last book that's being released in March that I want to talk to you about is coming out on March 28th, and it's called Kindred Spirits at Harling Hall by Shannon Booth. So this is another author that I've never read before, but it sounded really intriguing. It's about a single mom who goes on a field trip with her daughter to the Cotswolds in England, which is a small set of villages in the English countryside. And one of the villagers notices that this mom can speak to spirits because she's talking to residents of the village, both alive and not alive. And so he makes an interesting offer to her. He offers her the opportunity to purchase the entire estate for a very small sum if she will agree to take care of the current residents and residents that have already passed on. This is supposed to be a cozy romance with a hint of paranormal, and it seems like something that would be really fun to read on a cloudy day. All right, so I have 5 books to introduce you to coming out in April. The first one is coming out on April 3rd. Also takes place in England. It is a crime thriller called The Norfolk Theatre Murders by Judy Dakin. This is the 7th book in a long-running detective series. I have never read this detective series, and I've never read this author either. There's a lot of new to me authors on this list, but it sounds really interesting. 1 witness who can't be trusted, 7 actors who never stray from the script, and a costumed killer waiting in the wings. And I think that's pretty much all I need. This sounds like a really interesting case, and I think it would be a great mystery to read some cloudy morning. All right, so coming out on April 7th is How to Read a Killer's Mind by Tam Barnett. This is also a mystery and thriller. It's told from the perspective of a psychologist who is running a government program where they're trying to figure out how to get the most information that they can out of serial killers. Like, hey, where'd you hide your victims? The book discusses how far she might be willing to go in order to get this information out of these criminals. On April 22nd, we have A Wallflower's Guide to Viscounts and Vice by Manda Collins. And I gotta be honest, I just love the title. It sounds really interesting. It's a historical romance mystery, another first in a new series, and it's simply about a sunshine spinster and a grumpy viscount who use their fake engagement to solve a murder mystery. I love historical romances, especially ones that involve viscounts and earls and dukes and all that, you know, the Bridgerton crowd. And so this one sounds really interesting. It sounds like there is an opportunity for some humor and some romance and some mystery. All of that combined sounds quite lovely to me. Being released on April 29th is another big anticipated release. It's called The Amalfi Curse by Sarah Penner. It's another historical fiction and mystery about powerful witchcraft, a hunt for sunken treasure, and forbidden love on the high seas. That's all I need, really. That's it. I don't need any other explanation. I'm sold. I'll be purchasing that one. Also coming out on April 29th is a mystery and thriller called The New Marriage by L.G. Davis. This one's available as an ebook only. It's about a husband and wife who are hiding secrets from one another. The wife has lied to her new husband about who she is. The husband has realized that his wife is lying about who she is, and he doesn't even know her real name. It's a tale of betrayal, lies, and secrets. Sounds very interesting. So this brings us to May, and I have 5 books to talk to you about in May. The first one coming out is on May 6th. It's My Friends by Frederick Backman. I've heard a lot about the author Frederick Backman. I have not read any of his books, but this book sounds very interesting to me, and I think this will probably be the first one that I pick up from him. It's an unforgettably funny, deeply moving tale about 4 teenagers whose friendship creates a bond so powerful that it changes a complete stranger's life 25 years later. It sounds like an amazing story. I know Frederick Backman is a really popular author for other booktubers, and so I've been looking for one of his books to pick up, and I think this will be the perfect one for me to try out. Also coming out on May 6th is a YA thriller called The Thrashers by Julie Soto. This book is about an elite friend group called the Thrashers at some academy. A girl who desperately wants to be a Thrasher dies, whispers about the group's start, and her journal surfaces. Eerie messages and strange occurrences escalate, and it becomes clear that the girl isn't quite done with them yet. This kind of feels like it's got like a dark Mean Girls vibe. I don't know, it reminds me of the burn book that's in Mean Girls. Anyways, it sounds really interesting, and I am excited to pick that one up later this spring. On May 20th, another mystery thriller being released. It's called Nightshade by Michael Connelly. It's another first book in a new series. There's a lot of new series coming out this year, I've noticed. It's a trend. Introducing a new detective named Detective Stillwell, who is a cop relentlessly following his mission in the seemingly idyllic setting of Catalina Island. For those of you that might be unfamiliar with California, Catalina Island is a small island about a 45-minute ferry ride from Los Angeles. So it's this small island that not a lot happens on. This cop gets kind of exiled from LAPD and is now being forced to live and work on Catalina Island. He wouldn't play politics, and so this is kind of his punishment. He goes to this small island. They don't even allow cars on Catalina Island. They have golf carts. That's it. You walk, you hike, you boat, or you drive a golf cart. That's it. And everything seems pretty normal until a body shows up, because this is a crime thriller series and a body always has to show up. But it sounds really interesting, and I know that Michael Connelly, though I have not read him as an author, is a pretty prolific mystery crime thriller author. So this one piqued my interest and sounded interesting to me. There's 2 books coming out on May 27th that sounded really interesting. The first one is called It's a Love Story by Annabelle Monaghan. Again, another author, new to me, but seems to be quite popular with other booktubers, and so I have also been looking for a book of hers to pick up. This is a romantic comedy about a former teenage TV actress turned Hollywood producer whose fake it till you make it mantra sends her on a crash course with her past, forcing her to spend a week on Long Island with the last man she would possibly think of who could make her believe in love. This sounds like a rom-com waiting to happen, and I'm excited for that one to come out. Also on the 27th is The South Wind by Alexandria Warwick. It's a romance fantasy, and it's book 3 in her 4 Winds series. Even though this book is part of a series, apparently it is a standalone, and it is about second chance love inspired by Sleeping Beauty and the Greek myth of Theseus and the Minotaur. And so that just sounds super interesting to me right there, combining a Greek myth and Sleeping Beauty. And let's stick them together and see what we get. That brings us to the summer and 4 books that are coming out in June that sound really good to me. The first one is called The Listeners by Maggie Stiefvater. That is being released on June 3rd. It's her first adult novel that's coming out. I think all her previous novels have been middle grade or YA. I've read a lot of her books. They're all fabulous. The Listeners is a historical fiction set in January 1942. It's set against the backdrop of World War II. It's about a woman named June who runs a hotel and has never met a guest she couldn't delight. But diplomats are a different beast. And without firing a single shot, they've brought the war directly to her. As clashing loyalties crack the Avalon Hotel's polished veneer, June must calculate the true cost of luxury. It's a great time period to write about, and like I said, I've read so many books by this author before. I love the way that she writes, so she's pretty much an automatic buy for me at this point because I love all of her books. So I'm really excited for that one. Also coming out on June 3rd is the newest novel by Taylor Jenkins Reid, Atmosphere, A Love Story. It's an epic novel set against the backdrop of the 1980s space shuttle program and about the extraordinary lengths we go to in order to live and love beyond our limits. I mean, what more do you need, honestly? Astronauts, 1980s, space shuttle program. That's it. That's all I need. I am fascinated with everything having to do with space and astronauts and that kind of time period when, you know, the US was just exploding with all of these space missions, and it's just a super interesting time period, I think, to read about. I actually recently took a trip to NASA up in Pasadena, in the Pasadena area, JPL, and it was really, really interesting to see mission control and hear about all the different missions in the past. We actually got to go through a clean room. It was really, really interesting. If you ever get a chance to tour a NASA center, you should definitely do that. Coming out on June 10th is the next novel by V.E. Schwab called Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil. Again, super popular author. Have not actually read anything by this author. This is a fantasy novel taking place in 3 different time periods, it seems like. Santo Domingo de la Calzada, 1532, London, 1827, and Boston, 2019. 3 young women, their bodies planted in the same soil, their stories tangling like roots. One grows high, one grows deep, and one grows wild. And all of them grow teeth. That's it. That's the only description of the book. And it sounds super interesting. You've got 3 different time periods, you've got magic and fantasy and all this stuff, and some sort of dark mystery happening. And that's all I need. On June 24th, The Secret Library of Hannah Reeves by Christine Nolfi. Again, a new to me author. This is billed as an adult romance. In this book, an antique stealer and an enigmatic heiress embark on a revelatory friendship in a haunting and hopeful novel about family ties, secrets, and belonging. In July, I have 5 books to tell you about. Coming out on July 1st is a YA fantasy romance called Den of Liars by Jessica S. Olson. A young thief attempts a daring casino heist during a high-stakes tournament and is torn between 2 warring brothers. The cover of this one is really pretty, and that combined with the synopsis, I think will just make for a really fun, interesting read. Coming out on the 15th is the next book by Sarah Beth Durst. She's the author of The Spell Shop, which I recently got my hands on. I have not actually read that book, but I am excited to read it very soon. So her newest book is called The Enchanted Greenhouse. It's another romance fantasy about someone who breaks the law because she's lonely. As punishment, she's turned into a wooden statue and tucked away in some corner and forgotten about for a very long time. And one morning, in the cold of winter, on a nearly deserted island full of hundreds of magical greenhouses, she wakes up and must unravel the secrets of a long-dead sorcerer if she wants to save the island and have a fresh chance at happiness and love. So this sounds like another cozy fantasy romance that is very much in the vein of The Spell Shop. And I think I'm gonna like that book. And so that's why I've put the follow-up in my list of most anticipated, because I think I'm gonna like this one too. But who knows? Coming out on the 22nd is Not Quite Dead Yet by Holly Jackson. This is her first foray into adult mystery and thriller. She's also the author of A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, which is a YA thriller series that I am reading my way through right now. I finished 2 out of the 3 books in that trilogy. This newest book is about a young woman who is trying to solve her own murder in 7 days. That's it. That's all I know about the book. But at this point, Holly Jackson has convinced me that she's pretty much an automatic buy for me because her books are great. They're just great. On the 29th, we have Your Every Wish by Stacey Finns. It's a romance. And in this heartwarming and whimsical novel, two very different half-sisters discover that they have one thing in common. They're both in hot water, and to get out of it, they have to learn that life's hidden treasures aren't always so hidden, and that dreams can come true even when wishes don't. And the last book coming out in July I want to tell you about is being released on the 29th, and it is Ethereal Dreaming by Ava Reed. This is another YA fantasy, and it is a return to the immersive, lush, and dreamlike world of the dark academia fantasy, A Study in Drowning, as the aftermath of their first discovery pulls Effie and Preston on a final adventure and brings their haunting love story to its end in the final book in this duology. So I have not actually read A Study in Drowning, but I have had it on my bookshelves for years, apparently. I had no idea. It's right here. So it's actually on my TBR to be read this month, next month maybe, I'm not sure, sometime soon before the second one comes out, so that in July, when it comes out, I can read it. And that brings us to the last summer month, which is August, and I have 7 books to tell you about for August. First, coming out on the 5th is An Ancient Witch's Guide to Modern Dating by Cecilia Edward. Another cozy romance fantasy. It's like the 4th or 5th one on my list. I must have been in a mood when I created this list. Cozy fantasy, romance, and crime and thrillers are pretty much dominating this list, I'm realizing. But this one is about an ancient witch who explores the thrills and perils of online dating with hilarity and heart in a charming rom-com perfect for fans of cozy fantasy and witchy romance. And that's pretty much the only description I need, because I spent a few years in the online dating world, which is it's an interesting place. It's an interesting place to be. And so let's bring in some witchy magic to the online dating world. I mean, I really actually wish I had some witchy magic when I was online dating. That's okay. I don't know about you, but the combination of magic, witchcraft, and online dating sounds quite comedic to me, and so that's why this one made the list. Also being released on August 5th is The Art of a Lie by Laura Shepard Robinson. This is another historical fiction and a mystery about an 18th century English widower who is a confectioner drawn into a web of love, betrayal, and intrigue, and a battle of wits. It was pretty much that synopsis combined with the cover, very interesting, that got me to put this one on the list. I really can't tell you what this book is about because that description doesn't really tell you a whole lot, but I think the cover is fascinating. There's a lot going on here, so hopefully the book is good too. Also on the 5th, there's a lot of books being released on August 5th. That's a very popular date, it seems like. But anyways, moving on, the next one I want to tell you about is The Blonde Who Came In From the Cold by Allie Carter. Again, I think Allie Carter is a popular booktube author who I haven't read yet, so she's new to me. But this sounds like a great first introduction. It's a romance, action-packed second chance rom-com about two rival spies who must join forces in order to stay alive. Love, spies, what more could you want? And the last book to tell you about, coming out on August 5th anyways, is a book by one of my favorite authors, Reese Bowen. She's coming out with her newest historical fiction called Mrs. Endicott's Splendid Adventure. Blindsided by betrayal in a pre-World War II England, a woman charts a daring new course in this captivating tale of resilience, friendship, and new love. Reese Bowen also wrote The Rose Arbor and the Venice Sketchbook, and she is the author of my favorite series that I am currently reading. It's the Royal Spinous series, and I am probably going to tell you a whole lot more about that particular series in a later video because I love it so much. And this author does historical fiction with a little bit of romance very, very well, and so I am very, very excited to read this book by her. On August 19th, T. Kingfisher is coming out with her newest novel called Hemlock and Silver. It is an adult fantasy and a dark reimagining of Snow White, steeped in poison, intrigue, and treason of the most magical kind. And I love retellings. I think they are really fascinating to get a different perspective of the same story you think you've heard over and over again. And so there's probably endless possibilities you could tell Snow White, and I am really excited to see what this one's about. I have another retelling of Snow White in a book haul video that I'm gonna do very shortly. So I'm gonna be reading a lot of different versions of Snow White this year, apparently. On August 26th, we have The Executioners 3 by Susan Dennard. This is a YA mystery filled with rivalry, romance, best friends, and a gruesome curse that dates back centuries. Executions, romance, best friends, gruesome curse, historical fiction. Sounds great. And the very last novel I want to tell you about today is also coming out on the 26th, and it is R.F. Kuang's latest novel. I think this is very highly anticipated for a lot of people. It's Catabasis. I hope I'm saying that right. I have not actually read any novels by R.F. Kuang. I did pick up Yellowface about a month ago when I was shopping in Barnes & Noble, and I carried it around with me for a long time. I was going to purchase it, and then I came across a different novel that was also kind of involving people of Asian American descent, and I decided to go with the other one instead and put Yellowface on kind of the back burner to pick up later. So when I saw that she was coming out with a new novel, it sounded really interesting to me. This is a historical romance fantasy. It's Dante's Inferno meets Susanna Clarke's Piranesi. It's a dark academia fantasy in which two graduate students must put aside their rivalry and journey to hell to save their professor's soul, perhaps at the cost of their own. Again, this sounds like a very fascinating take on a hero's journey, which is one of the most classic stories you could possibly tell. And the only thing that scares me about this book is how big it looks. It looks like a really chunky book, and so I'm not sure. That might take me a long time to read all on its own. So I haven't fully decided when I'm going to pick this one up in particular, but I wanted to let you guys know that it was coming out in case you didn't, and in case you are a big fan, because again, R.F. Kuang seems like a big author in the book talk space. Hi. Hi, Mike. Hi. Good boy. Good boy. So that's it. Those are my most anticipated releases coming up for the spring and summer. Let me know which ones sound interesting to you and which ones you think you might be picking up. Hi, Tucker. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe so you can see what Tucker brings me next. Take care. Bye. Say bye, Tucker. Say bye. Bye.